Hey everybody, it's Angie and welcome to Hot and Flashy and welcome back to my kitchen. You know, if we're in my kitchen, it means that we're here to talk about diet and exercise and how to beat menopausal belly fat. It's the start of 2024. Everyone's just gotten over the heavily indulgent holidays. And now I feel like people really want to start getting either back into their exercise routine, back into a more healthy living, healthy lifestyle, healthy dieting routine, or they want to start one of those things. And they've noticed that I'm 61 and I'm not struggling with my weight and I'm not struggling with menopausal belly fat. And they want to know, what do I eat? What do I do? What changes have I made in the past year? So that's what we're going to cover in this video. I'm not going to do a what I eat in a day in this video because I've done a bunch of those in the past. And I got to say, my actual what I eat in a day hasn't changed a lot in the last couple of years. So I'll refer you to my previous what I eat in a day video, which is right up here. And that'll explain everything to you and have some recipes. I am going to do more of a what I eat in a day in about a month where we'll do some cooking together and I will share more of any changes that I've made to my diet, but really my diet does not change a whole lot from year to year. Those of you who've watched my previous videos on the topic know that I originally started my healthy eating and my exercise routine back in my 20s when I got my first high cholesterol reading, because heart disease runs in my family and I've seen my dad have a couple of heart attacks when he was in his 60s. And I thought back then, you know, I really don't want to have heart attacks when I'm in my 60s. I want to do what I can now to prevent that and to keep my heart healthy. I did pretty much the standard American Heart Association recommendations of what foods to eat and what exercises to do. I've also incorporated over the years a diet that helps my skin to look its best because, you know, the main thing that I do on my channel here is talk about anti-aging and skincare. And one of the best things that you can do for your skin is to feed your body because, of course, skin is the largest organ that we have on our body, and it really responds to what you eat. And the exercise that you do helps to get blood flow to the skin. It helps to get nutrients to the skin. At this point, I've really got my sugar intake under control. That was something that I have been working on hard over the last couple of years. I took my sugars down from about 150 grams a day down to under 25 grams a day. And I think that's a good place for me. I'm not going for zero sugars. Something around 20 is my goal. I'm also trying to increase the protein in my diet. Once we're postmenopausal, our bodies use protein much less efficiently. So you have to eat more protein in order to get the same results from your workouts and to build lean muscle mass, which then will help to strengthen your bones. Recently, I've started really looking into longevity and what foods and exercises you can eat and do in order to increase your longevity. And I've been looking into an anti-inflammatory diet because, you know, inflammation in the body really sets us up for bad health outcomes. It really increases our chance of having lots of the diseases of menopause and of aging. And so my diet and exercise lives at the intersection of all those different eating plans. But what I've noticed over the years that I've been doing them is that they're all pretty much the same. They all pretty much have the same foods in them. They all want you to do the same kinds of exercises. So if we were to make one of those overlay Venn diagrams with the circles that it shows where things overlap, if we put on heart healthy foods, and then we put on longevity foods, and then we put on skin healthy foods, and then we put on anti-inflammatory foods, you can see that there's a ton of overlap right here in the sweet spot. And these are the superfoods that I've really concentrated on getting into my diet. So I eat a lot of salmon, a lot of tuna, a lot of turkey, a lot of chicken. I eat shellfish. I eat a lot of tofu. I eat a lot of yogurt, and I eat a lot of avocados and a lot of olive oil. Lots of dark leafy greens, lots of dark berries, lots of nuts and seeds. Green tea is always on all of those lists. And you see that there's so much overlap that it becomes really easy to kind of strip out the things that, you know, let's face it, we all know they're not good for us. We love them. We love to indulge in them from time to time, but they're not the kind of things that should be the mainstays of your diet. The things I'm talking about that aren't so good for you, of course, are French fries, bacon, baked goods, cakes and pies and ice cream and dessert, white bread, white rice, empty calories, processed foods, sugary sodas. And then if we also do a similar Venn diagram over the foods that you should avoid while you're trying to achieve these same things, you'll see the same overlap where it's all the same foods that are not recommended for heart health, that are not recommended for longevity, that are not recommended for anti-inflammatory or that are inflammatory foods, that are not recommended for healthy glowing skin. It's pretty general knowledge what we should be eating more of and what we should be consuming less of. And so I try to live pretty much by this Venn diagram and eat all the things that are on the good list and avoid the things that are on the not so good list. Does that mean that I never eat anything that's not so good for me? Of course not. Because I am so diligent with my diet on a day-to-day basis and it doesn't change that much, I can go ahead and eat pretty much whatever I want, whenever I want. But I don't do that. So I'm at a restaurant and somebody has a big plate of fries. I'll have a couple, but I'll cut it off there. I'm never going to order a big plate of fries and eat the whole thing myself because I know that that is going right to my heart and it's not going to be good for me. So it is a little bit of discipline that you have to do, but I find that the longer I do it, the more I lose a taste for things. I've lost a taste for super salty foods, super fatty foods, beef and bacon. They just don't appeal to me anymore. And I love the foods that I eat. I just think they're so delicious and I've gotten more of a taste for those. You know, I can't imagine in my 20s being like, oh yeah, give me a big plate of salmon with kale and quinoa. I would have been like, what? Yuck, give me a burger instead. But now I look at that plate of salmon and quinoa and I'm like, oh, my mouth is watering because preparing it really well, making everything fresh at home, it tastes so much better than packaged foods and prepared foods that are full of junk that you just don't need to put in your body. So as I said, for all the details on exactly what I eat in a day, you can check out this video and that'll show you what I eat in a day. And as I said, I'll be making another video later in about a month where we'll do some cooking, we'll have some recipes and stuff that can help you to eat leaner and healthier. So that's pretty much my diet. For my exercise routine, I do a combination of aerobics and weight-bearing exercise. I need the aerobic exercise for my heart, and I need the weight-bearing exercise for my bones and for my muscles. So my basic exercise routine has been to work out 3 to 4 times a week for 20 minutes to an hour per session. But in this video, I wanted to share with you guys some new things that I've learned this year by following some new experts in the field. And my gosh, aren't we so lucky to be alive and going through menopause right now when menopause is finally being talked about and finally being understood more. And we have more doctors who are pushing back on the lack of information about menopause. And because there are so many great doctors on social media, I've started following them and I got a real education about menopause and what menopause and the lack of estrogen means for my body, for my health going forward. And so I just wanted to recommend some people. I'll put links to them in the info box below the video. The first person I started following was Dr. Barbie Taylor. She's an OB/GYN and a menopause expert, and she is in great physical shape. So she knows what she's talking about in this area. Then I started following Dr. Heather Hirsch, who also is an OB/GYN and a menopause expert. And then the third OB/GYN that I started following is Dr. Mary Claire Haver, also on Instagram, TikTok. She has really blown up this year because she tells it like it is and she does a ton of research. Between those 3 doctors, they're a wealth of knowledge about menopause and they've really helped me to understand what is happening in my body and what I need to be the healthiest postmenopausal person I can be. Then this year I started following Dr. Vonda Wright, who's an orthopedic surgeon, and she's an expert on women as they age and the diseases of the bones and how your muscles affect your bones. And what I've learned from Dr. Wright is that it's really important to keep lifting heavy after you're postmenopausal, because just lifting these light weights are really not going to do that much for your bones. You really need heavy weights. I also started following Dr. Stacy Sims, who is looking at the differences between women and men. And you know, her main thing is that women are not just little men. We're completely different. We have periods, we have menopause that affect our physiology, and so our physiology has to be treated completely differently. And she also recommends heavier weights and doing really quick sprints and things like that. It doesn't have to be long, it doesn't have to be a lot of reps, but those are the things that really help postmenopausal women. So I just want to share a couple of things that I've learned this year because of following these doctors and that you might find interesting, and how I've worked this knowledge into my diet and exercise routine over the past year. So the 2 main things that I learned this year were, number 1, that there are 2 different kinds of fat that we have on our body. One is subcutaneous fat. That's the fat that's like right here underneath your skin. You can usually pinch a little bit of it. The second kind is called visceral fat. That's fat that you can't see because it's inside your body. It actually surrounds your organs. And some visceral fat is good for you, and your body has to have it to protect your organs. What happens though is that as we become postmenopausal, our bodies pack on more visceral fat. Visceral fat can cause health issues such as high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and some cancers. So not only does it make your midsection unsightly, but it's really bad for you physically. Visceral fat is caused by eating more calories than you burn and not moving enough. A waist circumference of about 35 inches or more indicates that you have a larger percentage of visceral fat or are packing on more visceral fat than you should. A poor diet with high intake of fatty foods and sugary carbohydrates and an inactive lifestyle provide the building blocks for an increase in visceral fat. Stress is a factor too. Stress activates a hormone in your body called cortisol. More cortisol activates your body's fight or flight response, which triggers the storage of more visceral fat. Now, as it turns out, visceral fat is actually not that hard to work on. The thing is, though, it requires a change to your diet and some exercise. You can't work it out by spot exercising it, like doing crunches will not take care of it, but you have to exercise your entire body. You need to do systemic exercise is really what helps with it. And what helps the most is something called Zone 2 training, which I've also learned a lot about this year, and I'm working into my exercise routine as well. A healthy diet includes lean proteins, whole grains, low-fat dairy, fruits, and vegetables. Same things we've been talking about. Try to limit trans fats, refined sugars, sodium, and processed foods. Low-carb diets such as keto can help reduce visceral fat by training your body to burn fat as fuel rather than carbs. And it says that intermittent fasting may help reduce your levels of visceral fat. I don't intermittent fast per se because I'm adding more protein and fiber into my diet, and so I need those 3 meals a day so that I can get all the protein and fiber that I need into my diet. But I'm doing like kind of the basics of the baby fast, which is a 12 on, 12 off. So if I eat breakfast at 8 in the morning, I'm pretty much done eating by 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And then I have 12 hours where I don't eat at all. Most people who are intermittent fasting will drop that window of eating and make it smaller, like 8 hours of eating, and only have 2 meals. The thing with that is that it's really hard to do it right. And so a lot of the doctors that I've been listening to say that if you're going to intermittent fast, it's fine to do it, but you really, really have to be careful that you're eating the right things. You can't use it as an excuse to eat extra junk food and to not eat the right things. Reducing stress is a way to decrease belly fat by decreasing cortisol. Now, another way to decrease cortisol is to do those Zone 2 workouts that I talked about a couple minutes ago. The main benefit of Zone 2 is that your body produces less cortisol, less stress hormone in Zone 2, but also that it burns fat for energy in Zone 2, whereas in higher heart zones, you're burning more glucose for energy rather than fat. There are other benefits of Zone 2 exercise: a lower resting heart rate, a decrease in blood pressure, lower risk of injury because it's not as high intensity, it improves your insulin resistance, and it can improve your longevity and reduce cortisol and inflammation. So once I learned that, I was like, oh, okay, I need to work more Zone 2 into my workouts, and I've really been concentrating on that this year. But because I am concerned about heart health, I also work in a couple of high intensity moments in my Zone 2 rides. At the end of my Zone 2 ride, I'll do a really high intensity sprint for 20 seconds, I'll time it, and then I'll pedal again normal for 2 minutes. That's my recovery. Then I'll do another really fast sprint for 20 seconds and then do another recovery. I'll do a third really fast sprint and then another recovery. Then I'll do my warm down. Then I'll go to my mat and I'll do my weight bearing exercises, and then I'm done for the day. So Zone 2 is a heart rate zone. So when you're working out, your heart rate starts at its baseline, which is your resting heart rate. And while you're working out, there are about 5 zones that your heart rate can go through. So you've got Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, Zone 4, Zone 5, which would work up to your maximum heart rate. So the way to figure out your Zone 2 heart rate is first you figure out your maximum heart rate. So you take the number 220 and you subtract your age. So in my case, 220 minus 61 is 159. That's my maximum heart rate. And then to figure out your Zone 2, that would be 60 to 70% of your max. So my zone 2 is 100 to 120. And the way I track it is that I have my Apple Watch. This has a heart rate monitor on it, so I can see my resting heart rate. So that syncs up with my Peloton. I can see my heart rate on the bike while I'm riding. Another change that I've made to my workouts this year is that I'm going to start lifting heavier weights, and I'm going to start doing a little bit more impact. Now that I'm following Dr. Vonda Wright, her advice is really to lift heavy and to do some impact. But of course, being a surgeon and a doctor as she is, she wants you to take into account your physical limitations. So if you have arthritis, she gives you ways to modify it. Two of the things that she really recommends and is really very emphatic about is to lift heavy. Both her and Stacy Sims say to lift heavier weights. If you can lift the heaviest thing that you can so that you can barely lift it, but you can only do 3 reps, that apparently is better for your bones and your muscles than lifting, say, 20 reps with 2 pounds or something like that. So whatever is the heaviest load that you can lift. And then the other thing that Dr. Wright is encouraging is to do 20 jumps a day. And I've really tried to work this into my workout routine and into my life. And the 20 jumps a day are for building bones. So what I do is at the beginning of my workout, before I get on my Peloton, I will just stand in place and jump 20 times, and they're solid jumps. When I take my dogs for their walk every day, instead of just walking at a casual pace the entire time, I'll try to remember to do like 40 stomps. So I will just march and stomp my little feet as hard as I can stomp them on the ground. Now doing like 40 or 20 jumps or 10 jumping jacks, that is not going to impact my knees or my back to the point where it's going to really hurt. And in fact, it's going to increase my bone density over time. It is going to take longer to see the differences in my bone density, but I am hoping that it will make a difference because, I don't know, most of you probably aren't aware of this, but I did have a bone density test, a DEXA scan, about 5 years ago, and I had some bone loss in one of my hips already. And back then I was freaked out by it because I was like, what? I work out, I lift heavy. Well, guess what? I wasn't really lifting heavy, I was lifting moderate. So now I'm going to start lifting much heavier weights and see if that will help. And on that note, I'll also be doing a new menopause video coming up in the next month or 2 because I've made a few changes to my HRT. I've had a blood test to check my estrogen levels on the HRT and see if I'm getting enough. And so I wanted to update you guys on all that. So those are the changes that I'm making this year. If you're here looking for inspiration to start eating better, to start exercising, if you want to be the healthiest you can be at whatever age you are, then I think starting today and taking baby steps is the best thing that you can do. Obviously, you're not going to cut out and reduce everything that was on that bad foods list today. You're going to take little baby steps. So instead of going out and ordering a hamburger with cheese, the next time you go out, try to order a salad with chicken on it and see how you feel about that. And if you make those little swaps, a couple times a week, you should start feeling better. You should start losing weight. If you start moving more, if you just get out and walk, or you join a gym, or you get a personal trainer. As you start moving more, you'll get used to the feeling of moving more. We only get one body in our entire lives. So if there are things that you can do to help it to have less disease and to be healthier and to be able to function better, I think it's all worth it to do it. And it doesn't have to be that you cut out wine completely or you cut out desserts completely, or you cut out bacon or beef completely. You just need to limit them and put them more into the box of special occasions rather than every single meal you have to have something that's ooey and gooey. Because the more you eat the super salty, super sweet, super saturated fat things, the more your brain seems to crave them. And the more you eat the healthy things, the salmons, the turkeys, the yogurts, the fruits, the vegetables, the nuts, the more your brain starts to crave those. It does take work. I'm not going to pretend it's easy. It does take a little bit of willpower, but I know you can do it because it really is all about your health and all about your longevity and all about being the healthiest postmenopausal person that you can be. So I hope you found the video helpful and informative. If you did, go ahead and give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. As always, I thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye.